is that?
He's a puppet, just a puppet.
No, I'm not. I'm made of flesh and bone and meaty bits. I'm a real boy.
What does it mean to be a real boy when all the real people around you are puppets? That is the foundational question of Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio. And I've got 3 more questions about Pinocchio that I want to ask this month on the Catholic Film Club. But first, why this Pinocchio? Why not the Disney classic or one of the 100 other versions of this story that's been made throughout the years? Well, it's that stroke of genius by the director Guillermo del Toro to tell this story, this timeless story, using stop-motion animation, which is when you move a freestanding puppet incrementally, bit by bit, to create the illusion of movement. It's really the perfect application of the medium because in the original story by Carlo Collodi, the idea of no strings is an illusion. Pinocchio, yes, he's a puppet, he has no strings, and yet he's pulled everywhere. He's controlled by his vices, his urges, by his fears, by his hungers.
And right now, you need help.
With my claymation?
And that's the same for us. We're pulled everywhere by these outside forces, these invisible forces, and we don't know which way is up or down or which way to go, what's right.
Depressed? I'm the furthest thing from depressed. Do you think a depressed person could make this?
What the story tells us is that through obedience to our Father, to God, we find true freedom. And that is what makes us real. And so telling the story through animation, particularly stop motion, because of course the Disney classic was told in animation, but there's something so much more uncanny about a 3-dimensional object moving through space. It's much more than a stylistic flourish. It reinforces, and one could say adds a 3rd dimension to this timeless classic. Just look at this scene from a pivotal confrontation in a Catholic church, no less, between Pinocchio and the mayor of the town, the civil authority of the town.
It's a puppet to entertain.
If he's a puppet, where are his strings?
That's true. Who controls you, wooden boy?
Of course I control him.
Who controls you?
I mean, look at that from the point of view of the animator. The animator is giving the illusion of life to these puppets, but they couldn't do that unless they themselves had this gift of creativity, of life, of consciousness. Where does this come from? This is a mystery that's kind of difficult to unpack. Pinocchio gives us the tools to really think about it in this way. So that's the first question. Who controls Pinocchio? The other innovation that Del Toro brings to this story is to add the virtue of disobedience alongside obedience. And he tries to thread the needle between the two. And to do that, he updates the story to the years between World War I and World War II in the Italy controlled by Mussolini. But he puts us in the midst of this fascist regime to show that there are times when to be good, one must be disobedient. This film begins at the graveside of Geppetto's son, Carlo, who he lost in a senseless bombing of their village church, a bombing that was actually the fault of the Mussolini regime. Geppetto is distraught, and for years he sits by his son's graveside, and a pine tree grows over the grave. And one night, in a fit of drunken despair, Geppetto chops down the tree, and out of its wood, he creates this makeshift wooden boy. And then, miraculously, a wood sprite comes along, the blue fairy of the film, and gives the puppet life for the purpose of making Geppetto happy. So right away, themes of death and resurrection are staring us right in the face. And yet the interesting thing is that Pinocchio is not a perfect reincarnation of Carlo. In fact, he is defined in Geppetto's mind as by his differences from Carlo. Carlo is a good boy. Pinocchio is rambunctious and knocks everything over and doesn't know how to do anything, doesn't know anything. And yet there is a mystery at the heart of who Pinocchio is. Very early on, a parallel is drawn visually between Pinocchio and Christ on the cross. Pinocchio wanders into church and sees a wooden crucifix, actually the wooden crucifix that was mangled in the bombing of the church. And standing at the same place where Carlo stood but just before he died, he looks up at the crucifix and he strikes the pose of Jesus. He mimics it like a child would who doesn't know anything. He's playing. And it's very important to note that this crucifix is the one that Geppetto himself was carving before the bomb fell on the church, and he's left it unfinished because of his immense grief, as unfinished as Pinocchio. Throughout the film, there are moments where Christ parallel could be drawn. He's in the church because he was disobedient to Geppetto, and yet
I want to go to
Stay there.
his disobedience led him to church, to the place of ultimate salvation. And that's a clear parallel of Christ wandering away from Mary and Joseph into the temple. And this theme of disobedience versus obedience, I mean, Christ himself was disobedient to the laws of his time by being obedient to the laws of his Father, to God. I mean, at one point, Pinocchio is literally strapped to a cross. Now, Christians often refer to the cross as a tree, and Pinocchio is literally made from a tree. It makes me think of the line from Isaiah chapter 11, verse 1, "There shall come forth a shoot from the stump of Jesse, and a branch shall grow out of its roots." That's hearkening to the Messiah, and it's hard not to draw that parallel. And so it's easy to see him as a one-to-one Christ figure, but then you think, but he's so flawed, and Christ, by definition, was not. And I think to get into that, I'm going to have to get into some major spoilers about the ending. And I hope I've piqued your interest enough for you to pause this and go out and see the film. You can see it on Netflix. And join us in a few weeks to talk about it on the Catholic Film Club with some special guests. So before we get into spoilers, I have question number 2. This movie has a pretty great cast. You've got Tilda Swinton, Christoph Waltz, Ron Perlman, the voice of SpongeBob voices Mussolini at one point. You've also got Oscar winner Cate Blanchett playing Spazzatura the monkey. Now, Spazzatura the monkey isn't a talking monkey. She's just doing monkey noises the entire film, except for one scene. Why is this the one time the monkey talks?
Are you feeling okay, Pinocchio?
Later on, you see that Pinocchio will outlive everyone that he loves. And Jiminy Cricket, he dies, but Pinocchio still carries him around in the knothole in his heart. And so I think that there's a way that you can read this film where he is actually not Christ. That's kind of a red herring. In a way, I think Pinocchio, he is the cross. He is the tomb. He is creation. That's what this Pinocchio represents. When you look, and this idea of Pinocchio as creation, it's fascinating too when you look at it from the perspective of the artist, from the craftsman that is bringing Pinocchio to life. You have to find that distinction between why are you alive? How are you alive? Listen to this quote from Pope John Paul II in his letter to artists. What is the difference between creator and craftsman? The one who creates bestows being itself. He brings something out of nothing, ex nihilo. And this, in the strict sense, is a mode of operation, which belongs to the Almighty alone. The craftsman, by contrast, uses something that already exists, to which he gives form and meaning. This is the mode of operation peculiar to man, as made in the image of God. Later on, he goes on to say, God therefore called man into existence, committing to him the craftsman's task. Through his artistic creativity, man appears more than ever in the image of God, and he accomplishes this task above all in shaping the wondrous material of his own humanity and then exercising creative dominion over the universe which surrounds him. This is a beautiful piece of writing that everyone should read. I'll link it to the video below. But there you are. We're not only putting ourselves in the position of Pinocchio, but as Geppetto, as the one who has the opportunity to create and to give life and to live again through this gift of being alive. For his part, Del Toro, he's inviting us to think about how we stand in relation to our creator, to existence. And ultimately, who are we obedient to? Well, creation is obedient to us, but in many ways we are obedient to the laws of nature. We can't help but be. We are obedient to the laws of gravity, to death and decay, and to our own lives. We are obedient to the fact that we exist. And this is a gift. And I just love how Guillermo del Toro in this film invites us to contemplate this gift.
Did you pause it? No, hang on.
Oh my God. That's the whole thing.
It's weirdly fallen through the cracks, even though it won an Oscar for Best Animated Feature. It has that beautiful Criterion 4K, but it's weirdly been lost. But I really hope that people start to rediscover it and see it in its full context and all the beauty that it represents. Thank you. This is the Catholic Film Club. I'm Michael Coy. Join us in a couple of weeks for our follow-up discussion. Give us your answers to these questions. And you can follow us on our Instagram. You can follow us at media.benedictine.edu, where we're doing articles, podcasts, and some really cool masterclass series on a lot of fascinating issues, like how to drink alcohol with virtue and how to find that line between faith and science. I'm going to ask my last question now, and you might have been asking it yourself. What's with all the pine cones?